you talk about sport, you talk about movement, and each sport consists of unique movements that are based on simple laws explaining the movement's relationship to speed, distance, and accuracy. By understanding these principles, coaches can better understand how athletes perform these unique movements, and as a result, can better understand some of the underlying causes of error in movement and thus devising ways to minimize these errors. In this video, I want to start with the foundation of our understanding for the relationship between speed of movement, the distance of movement, and accuracy, which are grounded by Fitts' law. Everybody has heard of the saying, haste makes waste, and has experienced the notion that when we do things too quickly, we usually do things less accurately. This is pretty much the essence of the most fundamental principle of movement behavior, Fitts' law. We'll build on this idea and make connections to how Fitts' law and the speed-accuracy trade-off relates to performance of sports skills. So let's start with a couple key terms, movement speed and speed distance. So the movement speed, or what we are referring to here, is the speed of the movement or the movement time it takes from start to finish. So in order to increase or decrease movement time, an athlete may make a movement faster or slower by recruiting more or less muscle fibers or by increasing or decreasing the number of body parts involved in the movement depending on if they are trying to speed up or slow down. But we also know that the movement time is dependent on the distance those body parts need to travel, or aka range of motion. In general, according to Fitts' law, we slow down the time of a movement and increase the movement distance to improve accuracy so that the central nervous system has more time to detect and correct errors. So essentially, motion time is related to the index of difficulty. The more difficult the task, the longer the motion time. Let's take a look at how this happens almost naturally in most tasks. So more difficult tasks would be where target areas are much smaller. We call this target width. So maybe a lacrosse player needs to make a pass to a tightly covered teammate cutting across the middle of the field. Here we are demonstrating the speed-accuracy trade-off principle, or Fitts' law. The lacrosse player would need to make slower movements and extend movement time to make an accurate pass. Hopefully this example will make more sense as we continue along. So let's continue to look deeper into Fitts' law. How about if the time for movement is lessened and the distance of movement increases? You would expect the aiming errors would increase, and that's correct. So it would be exemplified when then the time of the movement, let's say, goes from 2 seconds to 1 second, and the range of motion of body parts is increased from 50 degrees to 75 degrees. This would seem like something where the movement is being performed out of control, which would seem that way because there are more errors in the movement and thus less accurate. We see from Fitts' law what happens, but why does this happen? Well, we can pretty much put the blame on the motor program's message to the central nervous system, which determines the order of the muscle contractions as well as the amount of force needed in the participating muscles. When a movement is performed with the same force over and over again, the motor program messages get a little fuzzy, and the forces actually produced in a contraction are not exactly what were intended by the motor program message. So when we decrease the movement time and increase the distance of the movement, the forces against the bones must increase, and as the force increases up to 70% maximum, the variation increases. This variation affects the accuracy because if the contractions are slightly different each time, the movements are not perfectly coordinated with each other and the movement results in a missed target. So we can say that movement inaccuracy increases as the movement time decreases or the movement distance increases, primarily because of the increased variation of forces involved in stronger muscular contractions. But this is something that can be improved through practice. Let's keep progressing along with this idea by considering the variations between movement time and movement distance and how it relates to accuracy. These variations discussed hereafter have been generated by researchers that have dug deeper in our understanding of motor learning to extend Fitts' law. So let's look at how Fitts' law has extended our knowledge to understanding how to complete tasks that are very forceful movements in nearly maximal speeds when accuracy in timing is critical. So you already know that many sports skills require rapid and very forceful movements like hitting a golf ball or kicking a soccer ball. Movements at near maximal speed is important, but precision in space and time also play a role. As we know from the speed-accuracy trade-off principles, movements with shorter movement times are less accurate, but only up to a certain point. So what is now extending on Fitts' law is that when movement time is reduced considerably, as in rapid movements, this requires greater muscular force, which actually decreases variability in force, thus increasing accuracy. So rapid and very slow movements have the most accuracy, and moderate movements have the least. So there must be some relationship here in determining how to be fast and accurate by maximizing the fact that time allows for errors to be corrected, but too fast over a long period of time creates errors that are accumulated and reduce accuracy. This would be why we don't see athletes complete skills with excessive range of motions with many body parts all at once in maximal velocities. Or this could be why when I go swing a hammer to hit a nail, that when I have an optimal distance that I travel with the hammer that makes me the most accurate at a maximum rate of speed. On the other hand, this would be why when swinging a hammer at the same maximal rate of speed and I begin to bring the hammer over my head to hit the nail, I become less accurate. But the best hammer swingers in the world are able to still hit the nail accurately and still swing the hammer over their head. Let me clarify more to extend our thinking. So the increases in movement distance and decrease in movement time can be traded off to maintain accuracy. So what this means is that if I increase the distance of the movement, we would expect it would take longer to perform the movement if I keep the rate of force production and the muscle contractions the same regarding velocity and allow for the errors to be corrected. So in other words, I can increase the movement distance by lengthening the movement time to maintain accuracy. I could say the same thing about adding more body parts to a movement in a slow movement timing to allow for corrections to occur. On the other hand, I could also shorten the distance traveled and keep the movement timing the same to maintain accuracy as well. These aforementioned variations could be why the slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and accurate saying makes sense. So this is why most sports skills start out being executed slowly before being performed quickly, so that the corrections can be made to maximize accuracy in the initial parts of the movement, and then maximize accuracy again by having short movement times. For example, an infielder gathering themselves before they throw a lightning-fast throw across the diamond, a lacrosse player gathering their feet, pointing their shoulder, slowing slightly on their backswing before executing a throw. How about the slower backswing of a golf player taking a swing off the tee? What about the soccer player extending their opposite arm fully and slowing their backswing of their leg slightly before the actual swing forward of the leg as they come and make contact with the ball? The initial movements are quite slower than when compared to the latter parts. Can you think of other examples? The application of understanding Fitts' law and aforementioned variations of how athletes rapidly perform skills accurately is threefold. For one, athletes naturally slow down their movements to improve accuracy in difficult tasks, and there is a trade-off between the optimal range of distance traveled to extend movement time. So we want to facilitate maintaining speed of movement as a coach. Secondly, when speed and accuracy is in need, athletes use slow to fast movements to capture the benefits of allowing time for our body to make corrections in slow movements to be accurate, and then also performing things lightning fast to reduce errors and maintain accuracy at optimal levels of distance traveled. And thirdly, the best athletes in the world are the ones that can do things lightning fast with big ranges of motion while also being extremely accurate And from these understandings, we can create coaching strategies that facilitate athlete development of techniques related to speed and accuracy. Strategies such as manipulating the sizes, shapes, distances, and adding barriers to the accuracy requirements in practice drills at high levels of speed of movement can create adaptations to athletes so that they are able to perform their skills at maximum speeds with great accuracy. So practicing high rates of speed of movement over great distance accurately would take time for athletes to learn, but would potentially improve their ability significantly.